So let's sit up nice and tall and close the eyes. And just take a moment to breathe in and to breathe out. To notice how you feel in this moment. To acknowledge and recognize what you are bringing forward in your own life experience. The role you play in your own suffering and healing. And the empowerment that you have within yourself to choose. And drawing the hands together in front of the heart. We'll begin with 3 ohms. Take a breath in. Om Sahana Vavatu, Sahana Bunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Together may we be protected, may we be nourished, may we become educated. May we study so well and so thoroughly that we have great insights, and may we never quarrel. Namaste. Good morning, good morning. Good to see you all here today. So today we'll talk a bit about love and the idea that is put forth in the Bhagavad Gita and many other texts of yoga of the need to shed the skin, the need to release the things that are burdensome unnecessarily to us. And perhaps to talk a little bit about how we might see that process, experience that process, and resolve that process. So, the passage that I read a few times in class this morning. What would it be like to perceive love wherever we looked? What would our lives look like if we constantly felt ourselves and the whole universe to be engulfed by love? And this is a perspective on chapter 8 of the Bhagavad Gita. That there is this ability that we have to perceive all of life, other beings, through the lens of love, of divine love. The passage doesn't say, what would it be like to perceive love everywhere we looked, in all the other people that we see? What would it be like if our lives, if we constantly felt ourselves and received from other people the love that they are all capable of? That's not what this says. It doesn't say, shrug it off until someone else does it. It says, you do it. It says, what would this life be like? What would this world be like if you were love walking through this world? Not conditional love, but unconditional love. How would this world change? How would your world change if you walked through this world as unconditional love? That's such a powerful statement, a powerful suggestion, that there is this potential to wake every morning, to exist every day, and to go to sleep every evening, experiencing only the essence of love. Even in frustration, even in anger, even in disappointment, even in whatever else we're feeling, that we can bathe those emotions, we can nurture them toward healing by dedicating ourselves to love. So in yoga and in India, there's a tradition called the guru-disciple tradition. And in the guru-disciple tradition, there is a master teacher. And students will take oaths with that teacher. They'll kind of enter into that lineage and they'll study under that teacher. They'll be dedicated to the well-being of that teacher. They will prepare food for that teacher. They will clean the quarters of that teacher. They will study diligently under that teacher. And over time, maybe one of the main things about the guru-disciple relationship that has gotten lost in translation, as this practice has come across time in India, not so much lost there, but definitely as it's come west, is that the guru is love. Love embodied, but love. And so what you're serving, what you're nourishing, what you're studying under, what you're professing to wish to reflect is love. In the West, we don't have that kind of a tradition here. We don't have a guru-disciple tradition originally here. What is here was borrowed from India and other areas. What we have here is economy, exchange. If you love me the right way, then maybe I'll love you the right way. If you are nice to me, then I'll be nice to you. Maybe. If there's a condition and you meet the condition, then I'll stay loyal. Probably. This wishy-washiness that we tend to experience, especially in the West, but they do experience it in the East too. But this wishy-washiness doesn't allow us to experience the power of love. It leaves us longing for it. It leaves us feeling like it's unreachable. The wishy-washiness of day-to-day living, of today I'll eat good, but tomorrow I'll eat like crud, Today I'll get up and I'll dedicate my schedule to, spiritual practice and service and this and that and the other thing. And then tomorrow it's like, I'm not going to bother. This wishy-washy back and forthness is not conducive to the consistent experience of love. What it's conducive to is suffering. And suffering, in the essence of the thing, is the opposite of love. Suffering is feeling like we lack. Suffering is feeling like we hate. Suffering is the experience of pain. And having such a judgment against that there's something wrong with me, something wrong with the world, something wrong somewhere, somebody is to blame for this. And that's not love. So for as long as we, and we'll just talk about the West because that's where we are, as long as we in the West are caught in this back and forth, this wishy-washy, today I care, tomorrow I don't, as long as we're constantly changing our minds about the guru, about love, and its value to us, we will never have an intimate relationship with it. So what would it be to have an intimate relationship with love? Well, you meet a person, and initially you're curious about them, you're interested in them, so you strike up a conversation. You're like, when's your birthday? What's your favorite color? Who's your favorite singer? What was your favorite moment in life? Tell me all about yourself. Tell me all about who you are. What are your dreams and your aspirations? Show me so I know you better. When was the last time we had that conversation with regard to love? When was the last time that we had that conversation with love and said, I know you are there? What's your favorite color? Your favorite singer? What's your birthday? How do I nourish you? How do I come to know you? What do I have to release in order to really come to know you? And even just saying that, sitting here, just like inquiring, even as part of this discussion, causes something to happen right here. It's like a softness, a landing, a release of tension. Is to acknowledge, I want to know what love is. I want to know its potential. I want to see, experience, and witness it in all of its majesty. And then some people would say, well, how can you do that in a world filled with hate and violence? How do you maneuver that? There's not enough love for that kind of relationship, not in this world. You say, well, it all depends on the eyes that you're choosing to see from. If you're choosing to look through eyes that see love, then that's what you'll see. But if you choose to look through eyes that see hate and blame and ridicule and disappointment and condition, then that's what you'll see. And love will be like a breeze that blows right by, and you're too busy complaining about the heat of the sun to even notice the beauty that was just right there with you. Hey, we get like that, don't we? It's like, oh man, it's so hot today, and so we start complaining, or it's so cold today. And then there's a little warm breeze that comes through, but we're so distracted by the complaint that we don't notice the relief. And in maybe one way, that's what love is a great relief. Love is a relief. It brings relief to you because it brings freedom to you. It's not a burden. It's not a pain. Love is not a burden. Love is a relief of the burden. Because when we come into a practice of unconditional love, we put the burden down. We say, I don't have room for this burden. I understand something differently now. They did this experiment sometime, I don't know. But they had these chimpanzees, probably in a zoo somewhere. And they gave them jars. And there was a banana inside the jar. And the chimpanzee put his hand into the jar to get the banana. Couldn't get his hand back out. Wouldn't let go of the banana. Couldn't get the hand back out. And sat there, frustrated. But never put the banana down. And they were trying to measure the problem-solving capacity of the chimpanzees. And the problem that I have with that research is they weren't testing problem-solving. They were seeing if chimpanzees have the same problem that humans have, that we grasp and we refuse to put it down. And they, in fact, do, to some degree. They see food, they want it. We see food, we want it. We see money, we want it. We see fame, we want it. We see this, we want it. We see that, we want it. And we grasp so much at that we become stuck in a container that is actually much smaller than what we are capable of. We become constricted in a container of self-doubt instead of free in a universe of love. I don't know, think of those two words. Constricted in a container or free in the universe. Which one sounds more attractive? Is it that simple? Yes, it is. We can sit and talk about it and we can say, well, these are the pros, these are the cons, this is why you should love, this is when you should love, this is when you should not love, this is when you should think about loving, this is when you can do this. But the reality is there's no time you shouldn't love. You should love always, no matter what. Somebody hurts you, love them anyway. Somebody harms you, love them anyway. Because to hate them is going to make this world a harder place for them and for you. Somebody is involved in your life that you have a lot of affection for, love them. They make a mistake, don't hate them. Acknowledge the mistake. Learn from the mistake, because that's what you're there for. You're not there to be the judge, jury, and executioner. You're there to be the witness. You're there to simply see the struggle, to witness the struggle through eyes of love, not to condemn. The condemnation, while we might orient it toward another person, is actually a condemnation of ourselves. Because what we end up saying is something along the lines of, I'm not good enough to be loved. You're not good enough to be loved. We're not good enough to be loved. We're not good enough. We're not enough. But the reality is, we're absolutely enough. Because the true essence of who we are is love. In the 1800s and the 1700s, and even like the 16, 15, and 1400s, I'm trying to think of who this started with. Might have started in the Bible. Actually, now I'm thinking about it. They said that the nature of man is beast. That's the nature of man. The nature of man is to be the beast, to be beast-like. And love is something that is nurtured in a person. It's not something that is automatically known. I don't agree with that. Yeah, I don't agree with that. I never have. And the way I see it is that when we're born into this physical body, we're born through love. We're manifested into this awakened consciousness. So much inspiration and sense of awe. Just look at a child. My granddaughter, we went to Bay's Rock Shop. And a little shout out for Bay's, great place if you like stones. And she's going down the aisle, and she's just like, what's this? What's this? What's this? What's this? And she's so taken by everything. Without a second thought, she picked up everything she saw and put it right back down again. And then went on and picked up the next thing and put it down again. And she never once stopped to think, am I wrong? Am I bad? Am I misbehaving? Should I change? Should I be what they want me to be? No. She was just purely who she is. She ran up and down the aisles and was so intrigued and in love with everything she saw. She wanted to know everything about everything. She wanted to touch and feel and smell and be. That's unconditional love, is to be. Now, the woman behind the counter said to my daughter, would please ask your daughter to stop running? Of course that's fine. But think about that. That is a condition, is it not? When was the last time you asked someone to stop running? Could you please not run so fast? I can't keep up with you. Would you please not run so fast? You're causing me anxiety or fear or doubt. Would you please not love so much? Would you please not care so much? Would you please not be so compassionate? Would you please be like the rest of the world? That's really what we're asking when we ask people to change for us. We're asking them to be like the rest of the world that we perceive, which is insecure, violent, and lacking in love. Does that make sense? Yeah. So next time someone comes up to you and they say, I just want to hug you, say, okay, I want to hug you back. That's fine. And next time someone comes up to you and they say, I'm really angry with you, then say, what can we do to repair this, to resolve this, so that we can both be happy? How do we bring this to love? It's hard. But until we learn how to do that, at least to some degree, happiness will be a far toss from us. It will be far, far away from us. We'll just keep looking for it and saying, well, I guess it isn't there. But the reason why it's not being experienced is because we have all of these boundaries and barriers up against it. We have all these conditions in place. And we don't oftentimes accept people at face value. Someone says, I love your hair. And I really do. We've had that conversation. Yeah. But then maybe on, one day it's like, I don't think they really do. Yeah. Maybe not for you. But for some people, Or someone comes up and says, oh, it's so nice to see you. And in your mind, you're telling yourself, oh, yeah, you don't really mean that. You're putting the condition of falseness onto another person when you doubt them. And you're putting the condition of falseness on yourself, too, that you're not worthy. And as long as you think you're not worthy, then you won't be able to experience the love. So that's a wall that you're building, that I'm building. We're yelling at our president for wanting to build walls, right? Well, maybe we need to practice taking them down. Maybe it's so easy for him to talk about building walls because we're all experts at it. What would happen if we all became experts at love and acceptance? Maybe there wouldn't be room for that kind of talk anymore then. Maybe there would just be a great involution. And suddenly, like a wave, people would start to see that we're unified, not separated. And that one person's suffering is the suffering of the whole species. And as long as there's one person suffering in this world, none of us will be able to attain complete happiness. Because to some degree, on some level of this or some other life we've lived, their suffering is related to us. Because we've set conditions. And we refuse the validity of divine love. I talk with a lot of young people and they say, oh, I want to be radical. I want to be with the cool kids. I want to do something crazy and amazing. I say, if you want to do something crazy and amazing, if you want to be radical and be a revolutionary, you learn how to love. Otherwise, you're just doing the same thing every other generation has done. You're finding something to complain about. You're fighting against it, only to later succumb to it, and then feel disappointed. If you really want to be radical, do the opposite. Choose to see that there's love everywhere, in every person, in every moment, in everything. Choose that. And if you don't agree with somebody, it's okay. It's not the be-all, end-all of the universe. It's just what it is. And it's the game, it's the back and forth, it's the banter, it's the intellectual inquiry, it's the karma that we're working through in this moment, in this life, at this time. So if you knew, sometimes they ask people, they say, if you could go back in history and kill Hitler, would you? It's a big question. Would you go back in time? The answer is no, because you can't go back in time and do that. But what you can do is change now so that you live less like him and more like love. Yeah. So now is the key, not the past. The question is, what did we learn from the past? And are we allowing that lesson to bring us closer to the experience of an exquisite love? There's a beautiful scripture called the Bhakti Sutras of Narada. And in there, love is referred to as exquisite, all-encompassing, 100%. And when that kind of love is present, there doesn't need to be ownership or condition or doubt. You're just with each other. We're just all with each other. Not just the humans, but all of us. All beings, everywhere. And we rally. And when one is hungry, we feed them. And when one is crying, we console them. And we don't say, well, you asked for it. We don't say, well, it's all your fault. And when one is behaving very poorly, then you surround them with love. You don't have to keep company with them, but you surround them with love. You don't walk away and say, oh, I'm walking away because you're just too far gone. No, Swamiji said, we had this great conversation, and he said, the most we can wish for any person is that they find the company that makes them happy. And let's just say you have a person who is doing drugs. And inviting them into your drug-free community on the condition that they be drug-free is going to cause them pain and suffering. So, you don't put a condition on them, but you also don't invite them in with the drugs. You say, this is a drug-free community, and if you would like to be here, that's wonderful. But if you can't be here without the drugs, then what I hope and pray for you is that you find a community that will make you happy. So that you're not, does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. So you're not saying to them, no, you cannot come here. But you're saying to them, but there's no place for drugs here. So if you're going to be using drugs, then this community won't be able to make you happy. That's all. They won't be able to make you happy. So find the community that will. And even those words are a lot to think about. Even those words are a lot to think about. What community do we need to make us happy? Are we happy at the bar? No, we think we are. Yeah? Are we happy, shopping at the mall with money we don't have? Are we happy fighting through the crowds at Macy's one-day sale? It's a good drama story. Oh yeah, we both saw the same pair of pants and it was a war, I have so many friends who have told me that story. I'm like, I'm not going. To take the condition away is to allow the individual to find themselves in the way that their karma dictates they need to, not in the way that our ego does. Every single person who's here has a karma that needs to be resolved. 10,000 karmas, 1,000,000 karmas. And their life plays out in such a way that is intended to resolve that karma. It's intended that if they see and make the choices from their heart, not from our ego, not from our condition, but from their inner knowing, then they can resolve the karma and relieve or eliminate their own suffering and the suffering of others around them. But if all they ever do is live because of our condition, within our conditions, and they never have a sense of heartfelt truth, how are they resolving anything? They're living falsely. They're not living in the light of love. And some people may say, well, but I love them. I don't want to see them doing drugs. Well, I don't want to see anybody doing drugs either. But I'll tell you that if they stop because you told them the condition, they will start again. And if it's not the drugs, it'll be something else taking its place. Because it wasn't their choice. It wasn't the heart's choice. They did it because they were told to. They didn't do it because they felt the truth. And that's hard for us to accept. Because we think, well, just make the kids stand in a straight line and eventually they'll know to go there. No, they'll go to the straight line because they're scared, because they're afraid, because they know that if they step out of the straight line, that they're going to get punished somehow, get yelled at, humiliated. So they go into a line. It's called the Matrix, right? Take the blue pill or the... Anybody in here watch the Matrix? Oh my gosh, are you...
I've never seen it.
Not one person in this room has ever seen the Matrix?
Little bits of it.
You've seen the Matrix. Yeah, okay. Good movie. It's a very good movie. It's all about getting stuck in the line, you know, and really wanting to get out, but not knowing that there is an out. Yeah. All right, I'll let that one go because not enough of you have seen the movie. But so we have this opportunity to love in this life. And in the Bhagavad Gita and the Devi Gita and in the Bible and so many, in all the scriptures that have ever been written, you know, or taught from a place of love, love is the underlying lesson. That's the key. The key is be the love. Be the love. Yes, do the work. Do whatever work it is that you're here to do, whatever you choose to do. A lawyer, a doctor, cat rescuer, you know, social worker, whatever it happens to be. Do your work. Do it with love. Do it with love only. No comparisons. No conditions. Just do it with love. Because otherwise there's a sense of doubt and a limitation that's put on your own capacity to experience relief from the burden. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna, better to do your own work and to fail miserably than to try to do the work of another and succeed. And he also says that work is, and I'm paraphrasing, but that the work that we conduct, the service that we conduct in this world, is a pathway to awakening. We just have to take our ego out of the picture first and recognize that we're here to serve. Not just one, not just two or three, not just one community, but we're here to serve each other completely. We're here to serve each other and all other beings. We're here to serve the healing, and to serve the love. In a previous chapter in this book, one of the authors speaks of little deaths, the restricting parts of us that we let die so that our yogi self can live. And much of what we let die is the notion that we are unworthy of love. Giving birth to our yoga self means simply to open up to being loved and to loving in return. And this is what Krishna emphasizes in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, put down the burden. The doubt is the greatest burden. The fear of death is another great burden. Jealousy is another great burden. Envy is another great burden. Hate is a great burden. Put down the burden and allow yourself to live through love. What's the worst thing that could happen? You're happy? What's the worst thing that could happen? You feel like someone took advantage of your love? You don't feel that now? What's the worst thing that could happen? Someone around you might let their self-defenses fall away because they know you mean them no harm. What's the worst thing that could happen? Let's see. You might laugh more. You might have, a great reason to wake up in the morning and to look out the window and appreciate the sunrise. You might be able to hold more space for people who are struggling. What's the worst thing that could happen? I don't know. I don't see any worse thing than what's happening already, which would pretty much be alleviated if in fact we chose the path of love. The doubt, the fear, the hate, the separation, the disappointment, the judgment. Oh. Yeah.
How do you hold space for someone or yourself, and what's that process?
Yeah. It's a great question.
Sorry, it may not be.
No, it's actually a great question. It's right in line, because how do you hold space? And to truly love unconditionally means that you need to have some capacity to hold space. And to even begin doing that, we need to have an idea of what that is. So first, let me start by saying what it's not. Holding space is not being a doormat, right? Holding space is not making yourself a victim of someone else's tendencies or anger, right? So that is not what holding space is. What holding space is the decision within yourself, and at first it is a very conscious decision, to acknowledge that you don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. And I know that you don't have all the answers. I'm not going to require you to live by the answers I think I have. And I will ask you not to require me to live by the answers that you think you've found. And instead, what we'll recognize, or I can only speak for myself, but what I hope we both recognize, is that we are both here doing the best that we each can to live true to a heart that longs for love. And if there's harm, if, let's just say, you come in and rob my house clean.
That would be some harm.
That would be a big job here too, so better a big truck. Then my hope and eventually my faith would lead me to feel that you must have needed it more than I did. That you must have needed something, and I must have been ready to let it go. So I choose not to be harmed. That is my choice. I choose not to be harmed. There is a man who went down to Mexico, I think it was, or somewhere, maybe it was Panama, and he was with his wife and 2 children. And this is a true story. And this was shared with me by someone else. So he goes down there and he went to like a flea market, because like the farmer markets are really huge down in like the Central American countries. And they sell all types of things there, just beautiful tapestries and this and that, and stuff that's made there and stuff that's made elsewhere. And I bought a Mexican blanket in Mexico once that was made in China, but that's another story. And so they're looking for this place. They were looking to buy something, and someone gave them directions where to go in the market to find it. And they must have gone the wrong way, because they ended up lost. And they went around a corner, and there weren't that many people there. And when they went around the corner, there was a group of men. And one of them pulled a gun on him and held him up at gunpoint and took his wallet, his jewelry, his wife's wedding ring, and then took off. And when he came back, somebody said to him, well, that must really change the way that you see, Mexicans or Panamanians or wherever it was he was. That must really make you, think twice about ever going down to that area again, and you must have so much distrust now. And he looked at him and he said, no. He said, I would go back in a second. And the person said, how can that be? You would go back and put yourself in harm's way again. He goes, man, it was a person. It was like 3 people. 3 people out of millions of people. He said, and what do I know? Maybe he had a wife and hungry children at home and that he was going to be able to go sell the watch now and feed them. I don't need the watch. The watch is an accoutrement. He said, I have a house. I have a bank account. I have a job. I have money. What do I know about what he had? Maybe his child was homesick and he was desperate for medicine and didn't have money to get what he needed. How do I know? So the person said, well, maybe it was just drugs, or maybe it was just what it was. And he said, well, maybe it was, but I don't know that truth. So I will choose not to be harmed. I will choose to see it as an act of service instead of a personal insult. And I thought, wow, that's brave. That's brave. Yeah. So holding space. We start small. We start small. And the next time we want to argue with someone and say that parking space belonged to me, we say, allow me to move out of your way. Yeah.
This is so fascinating and challenging. And I just wanted to ask, this is what my mind keeps thinking is, when you try to live as love and look at life through the lens of love, and at the same time, in your world, whether it's family, friends, associates, work, people in your world, you feel that you have to have healthy boundaries to protect yourself from people that either consciously or unconsciously can take advantage of you. How can you marry that?
Yeah.
Because that feels to me like 2 different things.
It's a great question.
There's a way to put it together.
You just said it yourself. What you just said. That how do we live seeing through the lens of love and still protect ourselves from others? Why do we need to protect ourselves from others? If you live a life of service, is it yourself that you're looking to protect? No. The boundary is not so much for you as it is for them. The boundary is not so much for you as it is so that they're not harmed. Because they're the one who's in a vulnerable position.
By doing harm, they could be vulnerable.
Correct. Absolutely. So if we don't maintain healthy boundaries, then we are providing that opportunity for others to become harmed because we refuse to take self-responsibility. It's a big responsibility. But when it comes down to it, it's the only responsibility there is. Responsibility. And if you don't keep boundaries, then you don't have responses, you have reactions. And reactions harm everyone involved. But if you have the ability to respond, then that's probably because you've acquired some skill through some training you've had, through some education, through some natural impulse to be a moderator or to have equanimity, or because you keep really healthy boundaries. And sometimes people say, but then they won't like me. If I don't say, oh yeah, sure, you could talk. Then they won't like me. They'll think I'm rude. No. And even if they do think that, what does that matter? That's not what you're seeking. You're not seeking, in your position, and I know what your position is, and similar to what my position has been, similar to many other people that we know. When we're working with a large number of people, it's important that we understand that the person is coming into us for a service, and the greatest service that we can provide them is to give them the service that we can through the organization, and then provide them with the service of not holding them hostage to our own fears or our own expectations. That requires a boundary. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you can have both. You can have the love
Absolutely.
in your heart, and at the same time practice the healthy boundaries that you think are best for all people involved.
Absolutely.
Yourself and other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, and then there is, of course, the component of asking yourself, why am I holding these boundaries? Are these the correct boundaries for the situation? And there is a great commercial. I saw this commercial. Now, who was this commercial for? Some of you may have seen it, so I don't know. Maybe you'll remember who it's for. It was kind of surprising who it was for. This guy gets onto a train, and he's an African American. And he gets onto a train, it's mostly white people. And so they start to move their pocketbooks from the aisle area to the inside, or they kind of scooch over so that they're taking up 2 seats, and nobody lets him sit down. And so he finally does find a seat, and he sits. And people are looking at him funny, shifty eyes, keeping an eye on him. Train stops again. A woman, a Muslim, comes onto the train. She's got the headpiece on, and she's got a child with her. And there's no seats. And nobody gave her a seat except for that man. Yeah. Through the lens of love. He could have taken the way he was treated and manifested that into a hatred, but he didn't. Instead, he chose kindness. He chose to be the brave one. But we need to be able to recognize that people suffer, and that we're the only ones who can alleviate that suffering by not contributing to it. And if we don't hold good boundaries, healthy boundaries, not boundaries out of fear, if we don't hold healthy boundaries, then we'll be contributing to the suffering. Does that make sense? Mm. Any other questions? Yes?
You mentioned drugs, and there is a drug rehab moving into my town. It's a small little town. And when I heard about it, all I could think of was fear and anxiety, because so many people are going to be coming into our town to go to this rehab. And how do I find,
Like when,
fear?
yeah. So I know this is kind of like a common thing that happens, right? They hear that they're going to open up a rehab, or they're going to open up a halfway house, or, whatever, an Alzheimer's home, and all of a sudden people start getting very fearful. But the reality is, estimate how many people are in your town. 40,000?
I don't think so.
So let's just say there's 40,000 people in your town. How many of those people do you think are alcoholics? 20,000. Typically, alcohol affects at least half of all people in this day and age, right? So there's already an alcohol problem. There's already a drug problem too. It's already there. So if anything, the fact that a rehab is coming in can be seen as a positive thing, because maybe more people will seek support in overcoming the burden of alcoholism or drug addiction. But don't you think that they'll cause some issues? No more than are already happening. Yeah, no more than are already happening. So keep that in the mind. And hold the intention in your heart that this rehab is opening there so that it can touch hearts. So that it can touch and support the healing of hearts. And the options that they're going to provide for people are needed by some people. And let's just pray that even one person is saved. Yeah. Because it won't work for everybody. But if it saves even one person, you never know who that person will turn out to be. But it's hard because we look and we hear other people, and other people are like... Now, I remember when I lived in Howell, New Jersey, they opened up a halfway house around the corner from us. It wasn't very far at all, like within maybe walking probably a half a mile, 3/4 of a mile. And all the neighbors were protesting. No halfway house, no halfway house, no halfway house. The thing has been there now for, 20 years. Never had a problem. Never had a problem. All those picket signs, never had a problem. Are there problems? Sometimes, yes. Then the problem gets addressed. But if we say no, let's just say that all those protesters were able to stop that halfway house from going in, where would they have gone? Eventually they would have found some place that they could go, I guess. But what story would they have to tell themselves on the way? Well, Town A didn't want me. Town B didn't want me. Town C fought like hell against me. Town D, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N. And I finally had to settle here because this was the only place that didn't fight me. And this place sucks because there was no love along the way. There was no acceptance. There was no kindness. So how will that person ever be able to see, experience, and offer love if they're not given love? Yeah. Intention's a really strong thing. So send the intention out. May they be well organized. May they do good work. May they harm none, love all. Swami Shivananda. Harm none, love all, serve all. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Kel.
Did I understand you to say that setting boundaries is more for the other people than for ourselves?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If that's the case, that sounds very similar to being a doormat. And you said that's one of the things that is not part of holding space.
No. When you set boundaries with other people to protect yourself, it means that a person doesn't have faith in the validity of their own work or the value of their own presence, that they have to be protected somehow because they're easily victimized, or that the other people are just so bad, Well, when we hold boundaries in place because we don't want to harm other people, we're not talking about other people harming us. We're saying, I do not wish to be harmful. Let me put it another way. So in yoga, it's in the Bhagavad Gita, it said, the one whose heart has become free of harm, free of the impulse to harm others, all others lose animosity in the presence of that person. Animals feel completely comfortable with them because they know they won't be harmed. But if I meet somebody and I set a boundary and I say, okay, fine, here's the line in the sand, don't dare cross it. And this is self-protective. It's like, there's going to be, how do I say this? I'm going to have a tendency to have a harsher reaction if someone crosses that boundary because I set it out of the necessity of my own self-protection, which is going to lead me to be more violent in mind, in word, in action, than if I put a boundary in place to avoid harming someone else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't fully agree with it, but
That's okay.
I just feel setting a healthy boundary is important for the person setting it and also for the other person?
Well, of course. I mean, you set your boundaries for both sides, but they're not just for you.
No.
Yeah, but most people do set their boundaries for them.
Right.
They lie to themselves and say, I'm putting this boundary. Look, here's a great example. You have a child, a 16-year-old child who is exhibiting political tendencies. And you say to that child, here's the boundary. You're not permitted to go out to protest. You're not permitted. It's for your own safety. People are getting arrested at these things, thrown in jail. Don't want to see that happen to you, so you're not permitted to go out. But that's not really why you're setting that boundary. You're not really setting the boundary because you're afraid that your child's going to get arrested. That might be part of it. But the greater part of it is because it will reflect upon you. And that's selfish. Because you will have to go out of your way to go to the police station, to post bail, to make up stories to tell people. Even if the story is partly true, still part of it will be made up. And maybe, I don't know, maybe other people who don't share the political opinion with you. And that's going to cause fear and trepidation. So the boundary is not put in place for selfless. It's not put in place in a healthy way. Cher, when her daughter, or well, her son now, right? When Chaz came out, Cher did this really wonderful interview, maybe a couple of years later. And in the interview, she said, when Chaz first came out, I was the worst mother on this earth because all I thought was how to do damage control. All I thought was how this was going to affect my career. All I thought was there's got to be a boundary. How do I separate myself from this? She said, and then I sat for a little while and thought, my child is suffering. And suddenly my career didn't matter anymore. And the boundaries changed. Because it wasn't about her. It was about Chaz. So if we can look at more of our boundaries in that light, it's not about protecting ourselves. What it should be about, what it could be about, is living by the virtues that we choose that are based in love and based in kindness and not based in fear. So if you tell your child they're not allowed to go to the protest, know why you're telling them that. Because it's not what you think it is. Maybe you're afraid the child's growing up too fast and that they're going to have a voice. Or maybe what they're saying is uncomfortable to you. And you don't want to have that conversation. You know, the boundary is in place typically first for selfish reasons. And it shouldn't. It should be selfless. That would be more conducive to a world that's based on love. Yeah? Maybe. Kind of, sort of. Yeah, okay, good. Any other thoughts or questions? Yeah? Was that useful? Yeah? Okay. So let's sit up nice and tall and close the eyes. What would it be like to perceive love wherever we looked? What would our lives look like if we constantly felt ourselves and the whole universe to be engulfed by love? One of the authors of the book had spoken of little deaths, the restricting parts of us that we let die off so that our yoga self can be enlivened, can live. And much of what we let die is the notion that we are unworthy of love. Giving birth to ourself means simply to open up to being loved and to loving in return. This is what Krishna emphasizes in the Bhagavad Gita. That yoga means realizing that you are worthy of being loved, that every being is worthy of love, and that we are the only ones who can do that in this manifested world. So be the love. Placing the right hand on the heart and the left hand over the right. And together we'll lift our voices in one Om. Take a nice breath in. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all beings everywhere find peace, love, light, and happiness. May all beings know their oneness. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Namaste. Thank you all so much for being here today. Good to see each and every one of you.